Hey guys, my name is Eden, and welcome to my book review about Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, which I've written is an innovative and logical analysis of the many cognitive factors affecting decision-making processes. So this is my review. I hope you guys enjoy. So just going through a bit of an overview, the novel takes us through an engaging display that delves into the deep depths that is our human brains. Kahneman highlights the role of System 1 and 2 thinking processes to show how we respond to complex situations by balancing logic and emotion. Whether it's in-depth analysis or intuitive response, it may be a result of how much time is available for the decision to be made. Moreover, there is a discussion over risk-adverse behavior and overconfidence, both two ends of a spectrum that can be destructive in making clear and logical decisions that are free from bias. Leading on from this came the development of prospect theory, the theory that describes the effects of loss aversion and the endowment effect, or sentimental value, to kind of put it simply, on the decisions of buyers and sellers. Finally, he analyzes the concept of perceived utility and the brain's reward evaluation system, which is really interesting. He describes how current utility is typically seen as more valuable than future utility and the difficulties in being motivated towards gaining that kind of future utility. So the first main idea Kahneman discusses is the dual process thinking system. To put it simply for you guys, I've used this image above to explain the difference in the two systems of thought. In system 1, we see Homer eating a donut, which makes us think, okay, that was most likely a quick intuitive decision. And even though a donut is unhealthy, there's minuscule risk in that specific situation, and therefore it would have been kind of easy for Homer to act on his impulses. However, for system 2, we see a smart sci-fi looking character who we may associate with someone being of a higher intelligence maybe. We associate this with our system 2 thinking, which is slow and purposeful in analysis. This system is important, especially in vital decision makings where minimizing risks may be optimal. However, it is important to note the interplay that occurs between the two systems, as people typically use System 1 processing at first glance, and once they have more time to analyze, use their System 2 processing methods to endorse or revise initial thoughts. The second concept, which is thoroughly analyzed throughout the text, is the effect of cognitive biases and heuristics. You know, those little assumptions and pre-existing thoughts or experiences you've had which shape the way you may think. On this slide, you can see a list of these that the author details in his novel. I would like to focus on the two that I believe Kahneman puts particular emphasis on. So I'm going to be talking about the availability heuristic, which is a shortcut our brain uses to make decisions based on prior experiences and knowledge. Kahneman refers to our minds as associative machines which recognize patterns and use the influence of experience and intuition for convenience. One of Kahneman's examples indicates the ease of likelihood that this heuristic is commonly affecting our decision-making efforts, as he points our attention to the news outlets and the attention that they put towards violent crimes. This affects our perception of crime as we tend to associate violence towards it, when in actuality, the majority of criminal investigations are not related to physical or sexual violence. However, we use what is available. In unison with this heuristic, loss aversion is a factor that dictates risk-averse behavior. Loss aversion is a feeling that you need to avoid losses over gaining something of equal value. Another factor in loss aversion is the certain emotion you may hold towards losing something that is yours, even if the potential winnings is of equal value. In my own analysis, I associated loss aversion with the feeling of those watching the news, as it was more convenient to believe the information at hand considering the severity of potential loss or increased violent crimes. You know, it's much easier to generalize and just call it a prevention strategy. Prospect theory, which is actually developed by Kahneman, is a theory that attempts to more accurately describe the human response to uncertainty in decision making. The theory describes how people evaluate their choices under duress, considering gains and losses and also influenced by the way options may be framed. It takes a more kind of psychological approach towards decision making that better helps explain the biases that typically occur within System 1 thinking processes. In one of the studies discussed in the novel surrounding saving 600 patients, a situation arose where a majority of participants preferred to save 200 people as a definite over having a 33.33 chance of saving everyone in the study. Statistically speaking, the latter is a better choice. However, when people are put in situations from specific perspectives, they are likely to avoid gains in order to avoid risking losses, like the 200 saved patients that they knew they were going to save. They had kind of associated that as more safe, with the option of potentially saving everyone with a higher likelihood of not saving anyone. That's just the way that questions can be framed to point your perspective towards any, really. They use tone and wording to play on emotions and psychological triggers in order to influence associations in your brain to be created. In hindsight, I would like to assume that the majority of human decision-making processes are influenced by external factors that could realistically cloud logic and judgment. Although there is discussion of the system interplay between System 1 and 2 thinking in the novel, I do believe that it doesn't cover all thinking and decision-making processes. Time and thinking efforts are large factors as to what level of thinking processing is used in the decision. But rather than two systems, I would say that System 1 and System 2 are two ends of a spectrum. Overall, our level of effort we put into thinking processes kind of revolves around how much time and active thought we put into the decision. And therefore, I think there's varying levels of perspective. You can have kind of obviously the end of System 1 where you're using quite a bit of intuition and you're not taking enough time to properly form logical response to the situation. But then you can have something like, let's say you had 10 minutes to analyze a decision, and yes, it's not enough time to make a purely logical decision, analyzing maybe all the outcomes of a very complex situation, but you definitely have more time than making an intuitive decision on the spot. So therefore, I think it's more of a continuum rather than a System 1 or a System 2 response. Where's the help, Daniel? No, I'm joking. The novel provides a comprehensive analysis that helps us understand the many subconscious traits we carry. However, in all this extensive detail on the biases, systems, heuristic, the real-life examples he provides of human error, but where's the advice? The assumption from the author is that the knowledge alone is enough to help audiences prevent biases in decision-making. But in my opinion, there's nowhere near enough reference to prevention methods. Awareness is one thing, but lifelong habits are formed in terms of decision-making processes. We've been thinking this way our whole lives, especially when it comes to System 1 thinking, as intuition tends to change less than long-term thinking, than long-term logical thinking. Even reading the novel and analyzing it myself, I still catch myself undergoing biases and heuristics I may be unaware of in the moment, but I definitely am aware of now. For example, in my basketball game recently, I experienced overconfidence bias from my point of reference, as it was the last game of the season, and we already did make finals, so my shot selection was a lot more risky than usual. And you know what? It did lead to a lower shooting percentage overall. I did have good fun, I had to say, but yeah, where's the help, Daniel? Here's my take. Change these three things right now. Number one, know all your options. This references framing effects and reference dependence again. For every question, there's an answer, and therefore, if the options in front of you seem obscure, do not settle for the best. Obtain more information about your decision. Even if you don't find the answer, there's a high likelihood that your decision will be more informed, and there is a higher probability that a positive outcome will be achieved. Number two, stats don't lie. In terms of assessing gains and losses and knowing when to take risk, there is normally an objective measure of some sort of probability to work out. Take your time, work out the numbers, whether it's an investment or a depreciating asset, or even just an emotional or social decision, it doesn't matter. Patience typically removes emotion and allows for logical decision making. And lastly, allocate your decision importance. Knowing System 1 and System 2 interplay and how often human error occurs, make a change. Before you make a decision, rank the importance of the outcome to you. If you're deciding on a life-altering surgery, for example, you may not have the most time to decide, but take literally every second you are given to weigh your options. On the other hand, and I definitely need to listen to my own advice here, but if you're going out for dinner with a friend, maybe don't overthink your options just because you're indecisive. It's most likely not that important. Thank you so much for listening, guys. I've really learned a lot from this novel and the concepts it's discussed. In the future, I aim to use my insights to avoid kind of illogical outbursts or last-minute dopamine rushes so that I can be more informed when deciding to make decisions through my day-to-day life. So thank you very much, Kahneman. I appreciate that.